A yokai's tribe is incredibly important in Yokai Watch 3. In 3, tribe unities are formed in 3 or more yokai of the same tribe or on the same team. The effect is a 1.5 times multiplier to whatever the unity does, which we'll talk about in each separate entry. If 6 of the same are on a team, it's instead a 2 times multiplier. There's no bonus for having 4 or 5 yokai, they only boost at 6. This is a common misconception, I thought it'd be nice to clear it up here. Unities affect your entire team in 3, even if they're on a different tribe. This means you can have 2 passive effects in your team at once, or one strong one that restricts team building, but it is worth it. Every team should have at least one tribe unity, and it's really not too difficult to put one together. There's a strong LRT and a strong air S-rank tank in every main tribe, so you can very easily fill in a unity with one of these. You have to look at the rest of your team and think, which would be the best tribe to unify here? Once you have your first unity, you can look at the other 3 yokai and decide if you can or want to make a second unity. If you can without breaking the team, go for it, and if not, one unity is still good enough to work. But which of these tribes and unities are the best? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. In this video, ranking all tribes in Yokai Watch 3 from worst to best. We're mainly looking at the unity bonus itself, as well as the yokai can help fill it out. This intro is getting pretty long, so let's just get into it, shall we? Number 9. The Wicked, One Droid and Enma tribes. These all share a spot on the list for one simple reason. None of them even actually have tribe unities. Wickeds at least have the benefit of being more resistant to spirits, but One Droid and Enma get nothing. I suppose for Wicked and Enma this was done to balance their yokai, as not being able to fit them into a tribe unity makes team building around them that much harder. None of the Wicked yokai having an item is a pretty big downside as well, and makes almost all of them completely unviable. The exceptions are Wrongneck, who actually does have a slot, and Unpleasant, whose stats and skill are good enough to back him up. Neither of these yokai are particularly great anyway, but they have enough going for them to justify having no tribe. All the other Wicked yokai are hindered so much by their loss of an item slot and no tribe that they become totally unusable. Enma tribe doesn't have this drawback of having no slot, and most of the yokai in this tribe are good, sure. However, they're all S rank, so even if a unity was possible, you wouldn't be able to make it with official rules. The Enmas are all so strong for the most part that it's still worth trying to build around them, or at least are worth making the sacrifice to use. For example, using Ancient Enma on a switcheroo team isn't a huge loss, and switcheroo always struggles to make unities, and he can work wonders as a tank on those teams. One Droid is just there for flavour for Cyborg Y, there's nothing really special about it. It just makes him a lot worse than he already is. These 3 tribes has varying levels of yokai quality, but the point stands that having no unity is an insane downside, and makes these tribes automatically the worst in the game. Number 8. Heartful. The Heartful unity boosts healing techniques. Yeah, there's just one issue. Healers suck. Dedicated healers are almost completely irrelevant. Fukurukuju exists, sure, but most of the time there's another soul gem that changes his technique to an offensive one, so he doesn't have to heal, and can actually contribute better. Fukurukuju isn't good because of his healing, he's good because of his reviving skill and ultimate. This sort of also extends to Ulteria with her reviving ultimate, although using her with the technique soul is a lot harder to justify. Ulteria is better as a dedicated healer, but dedicated healers are so bad that it doesn't really matter anyway. Almost the whole Heartful tribe is invalidated because of this. There are a few offensive Heartful yokai, but they usually fall flat in some area, and being Heartful is just the nail in the coffin. A perfect example of this is Ungle Infinite and his awful speed stat and below average skill. Offensive Heartfuls wouldn't really save the tribe though, since the actual effect is so god awful that it wouldn't even be worth putting together anyway. If you do end up using a Heartful that actually does something like Old Fortune or doubles, the best tank options in Heartful in my opinion are Lazy Sunday and Alpina. Alpina has a reviving ultimate, great bulk, and an alright skill that might come in useful sometimes. Lazy Sunday has alright defensive stats and can tank fine with a shielding soul. You do have to be moving him around all the time to get the most out of that skill, but as a shielding soul user it's not too much of an ask. Donchan is the only Heartful support worth mentioning, and he happens to have the best strength boosting and spirit in the whole game. This, while being an amazing effect on paper, is actually very hard to apply looking at Donchan's tribe. The best spirit booster, Dumbcap, is mysterious, so you can fit in that unity and casually be the best support in the game. Donchan only works on teams with the regular Brave unity, which are still good teams, but it would be nice to have a support option like Cap for those. The best you have in mono Brave teams is Samuryu with his ultimate, but it's just not the same. Overall, Heartful is a pretty terrible tribe, and one of the game's weakest points in balancing. Number 7. Shady. This was a tough choice between this and Slippery unity for the second worst in the game. Shady unity boosts your in-spirit accuracy. It's pretty easy to see how much of a niche effect this is. The main benefactors from this would be Educator and Sunken Soul, but they usually run Supernatural Soul anyway, so it doesn't really matter for them. Red Rush Taiju appreciates it though, but that's not a strategy that sees much play over Supernatural. The only other yokai that make a good use from it is Retreater, so they can get their Nocturne damage and heal from their skill. This makes your unity effective incredibly niche, similar to Heartful, but the difference that puts Shady unity higher is that it's an incredibly easy unity to make. On almost every Inspirit team, you'd already have Dr. Nocturne or Ed's off, already giving you one Shady. From here you can use Eusebion Football, a Retreater, or even Tyrat if you're desperate as your tanks, and it's incredibly easy to fill from there. Neckplant as another tank, Crummy Mummy to do Crummy Mummy things, Carnaboy to make Ed's off attack more, you do it to give them an extra turn. There are so many great support and tank options in Shady, and teams that use this unity do quite well, but I personally believe that the bonus itself isn't a huge factor and it doesn't really matter all too much in these teams. It's at least better than Heartful if that's any consolation, although that's a pretty low bar. Moving on. Number 6. Slippery. The Slippery unity makes your team more resistant to Inspirits. It was a real tough choice between this and Shady, but I think the Slippery unity is better because of how broadly you can use the Slippery unity. It's not a good effect per se, but it can be utilised on all teams rather than the Shady unity being specifically good in Inspirit teams and near useless everywhere else. Slippery has an odd mix of yokai, but is a generally high quality tribe. You've got strong technique users and physical attackers. For tanks you have top class choices like Cringer and Shrook, and for supports, Whisper and Mython are both invaluable in a lot of archetypes. These yokai can all work very well on their own, but the fact that they have such powerful qualities means it's a very easy unity to put together. The unity bonus really isn't great, although it's very rewarding if a yokai gets bad RNG and accidentally Inspirits instead of attacking, which will most likely count as a miss if you even just have the normal Slippery unity. All Slippery teams can work as well, I've even tried it in the past, but I wouldn't recommend it as the unity bonus just isn't enough to justify it, as strong as a lot of the yokai are. Slippery unity is a supplemental unity that you put together with another, if only just to have another unity or one at all. Moving on. Number 5. Tough. The Tough unity raises your yokai's defense stats. This is a weird one to talk about. In Yokai Watch 3, technique damage now ignores defense. This makes defense essentially half as useful to boost as all the other stats. A defense boost isn't bad, but against magic teams it just won't do anything. It's a very matchup dependent effect, which is why I put it right in the middle of the list. One of the best wall breakers in the game, Orkanos Lubu, happens to be tough, but I decided that there aren't too many offensive tough yokai that actually do well. The ones that do exist, like Rhinormus, are mostly outclassed by Lubu anyway, but he makes up for it by being so damn powerful. In addition, a lot of the good tanks are in tough. Like, most of the best tanks in the game are tough. Cubot, El Sharkador, Impasse, Terrapata, Swelton, and more are all just stupid good, and you won't struggle to fit 2 on your team to make the unity happen with your offensive tough attacker. You also have nice support options like Numbskull and Repossessor to work with. There really isn't much else to talk about with tough unity. Sometimes it does stuff, sometimes it doesn't. One more thing to note though, is that it makes Crummy Mummy almost totally irrelevant, as if your attacker has any semblance of bulk already, even a normal tough unity should make it do incredibly little. A mono tough team is something that Crummy Mummy never wants to see. Number 4. Charming. Charming unity boosts your team's speed. Speed has a lot of qualities in Yokai Watch that aren't stated in game. Not only does it decide turn order, it also affects your yokai's accuracy and evasion, and if it's boosted enough, it can even give some yokai an extra turn. A charming unity isn't too easy to put together since a lot of the tribe isn't great, but it's still possible. There are a lot of strong charming attackers like Neopatra, Dead Cooler, and Barraboy, and Pandora is one of the best yokai in the whole game, so it isn't too rare to get a charming on your team. Your main 2 tank options are Slackoon and Her Excellency. Her Excellency has great bulk and unsheltered skill, as well as a healing technique for herself to stay alive for annoyingly long amounts of time, while guarding thanks to her shielding soul. Her random tiles ultimate is also a great advantage, as slow as it charges, as it lets you easily hit any tile on the opponent's board and really disrupt their formations. Slackoon has good bulk, Lazy Sunday's skill, and a random tiles ultimate. He's amazing, and always worth using if you can make a charming unity. For support options, you have Stink Eye to slow the ultimate charge, Naked Speed is the best speed and spirit in the game, Legally has gradual healing, and more. Charming is a great all-rounder tribe, and the unity is very strong, but I don't think it's as easy to make or as useful as our top 3. Number 3. Eerie. Eerie unity boosts the effects of your teams and spirits, positive and negative. This isn't explained very well in game, but it's pretty much just a boost to the multiplier or activation chance of your spirits. For example, with the basic Eerie unity, a dumb cap in spirit will be a 45% boost to spirit, instead of a 30% boost. This is insanely good, as you could probably tell. A dumb cap boost is strong enough as it is, and a lot of other stat boosters really love an Eerie unity. The main issue here is that an Eerie unity won't always be helpful. If your team doesn't have stat boosters, there's no point in having the unity. However, most teams do use a stat booster, and Eerie unity will be invaluable. Strong Eerie attackers like Zomboid, Droplet, and Whack-O-Lantern can actually put together a unity fairly easily. You have Sprunk and Treasure Press both being great tank options, and support like Slacks, Cheek Squeak, and Glumdango being very useful in many different ways. We also have to acknowledge Je ne sais quoi, whose skill is the equivalent of a full Eerie unity for both sides. This stacks with your own Eerie unity, so this could potentially lead to some insane boosting potential. She also works well as a magic tank with shielding a bonus top assault. Who thought she deserved to have 2 full slots? And she has a stupid fast ultimate charge for no reason. The fact that she has an entire tribe unity as her skill is strong enough, like. Eerie unities aren't as hard to make as you'd expect, but they're pretty difficult to make if one of your attackers isn't already Eerie. It's usually worth it though. Moving on. Number 2. And number 1. Brave and Mysterious unities are tied for the best in the game, and I doubt anybody will argue. Brave unity boosts strength, and Mysterious unity boosts spirit. Even just a basic one of these unities is already a stupid good boost, but Mono Brave and Mysterious teams are very powerful as well. They obviously all have the best physical and magic attackers in the game, too many to name here. They have amazing tanks like BBQville, the Phoenix and Slumberhog and Brave, and Unsheltered, Travolcan and even Signaton and Mysterious. They both have great supports in the form of Samariel, Dumbcap and a Pelican. They're just such stupidly easy unities to make, especially Mysterious considering how insanely busted Dumbcap is, and from there it isn't too difficult to throw on an Unsheltered or Travolcan or whatever else you might need and make that unity. Brave doesn't have something of the same caliber as Dumbcap, but Samariel is still a pretty strong booster, and you can fit a BBQville into teams very easily. Strong physical attackers are a lot more concentrated than magic attackers. By this I mean that most of the insane physical attackers are in Brave, while magic attackers are more spread out across the tribes. This makes Brave UUTs super easy to finish, and it's what ties them in my mind. I was originally going to put Brave below Mysterious because they didn't have as good support options, but this factor makes them equal in my eyes. And that was that. Sorry to have been gone for so long, I just really needed space to breathe. From here on, I'll be making videos at my own pace rather than restricting myself to daily uploads. I think it'll just be a net positive for my mental health, and rest assured, I won't be stopping for good anytime soon. Thanks for watching and have a good day.